I just read a bunch of chapters in Lord of the Rings because the person that I'm reading this with got way ahead of me, and now I'm kind of playing catch up here. So I'm just going to record a bunch of videos on each chapter. The chapter I'm talking about here is The Road to Isengard. It's just after the huge battle at Helm's Deep. Gandalf is going to go to Isengard and have a word with Saruman, figure out what's going on in Isengard and all this stuff, and he invites a bunch of people to come with him if they want to know more about the trees and their role in things, because, the fleeing army of Isengard ran into the forest and seemingly disappeared, and as they go on, it's implied that they were destroyed so thoroughly by the trees, maybe by some Ents, that they left no trace, so that's pretty cool. And on the way to Isengard, there's a lot of dialogue. It's very rambly. We got a ton of backstory. It could definitely be chopped down quite a bit, no pun intended. But if you're into the backstory and lore and all that stuff, then you're probably going to really like this chapter. Even for me, where a lot of the backstory doesn't really work and goes on a bit too long, some of it does work. For example, I love the section where they talk about the history of Orthanc and Isengard and how it was once the domain of men and the Númenóreans, but it fell to evil and all this stuff. That's a motif we're going to keep seeing. For example, later with Minas Morgul, that's the case again. And then we've got like the history of the lost seeing stones, one of which is with Saruman and how it used to be a force of good and now it's a force for corrupting and distorting the minds of anyone who uses them. So it's really interesting, that part. There's a part later on in the book where we do get a lot of backstory at the worst possible time, like right in the middle of an action scene, and it just sucks all the tension away. But this really adds to the mystery and the enigma of Lord of the Rings and its history. And the other thing that adds to the mystery is the fact that we haven't seen Saruman. We know of his actions from how it's affecting the heroes, but unlike the movies, where it's constantly cutting back to Christopher Lee so he can choose scenery, in the books he's really shrouded in mystery, so it really ups the anticipation of seeing him later on. And then they come to Isengard finally, and there's a really funny scene where they come across the hobbits, and Gimli is just beside himself about it, and he's just like, we've been all over, hell and high water looking for you, and here you are, you're smoking weed and eating food, and where did you get the weed, by the way? I would like to know. And then they get a lecture about the history of pipeweed from the hobbits, and so it's a really good break in the tension and some much needed humor. I forgot humor existed in these books because the last chapters have been so serious. But yeah, a good way to end the chapter, even though I found it quite long. The next chapter we're going to get some real action, so look forward to that and follow along.